Hello, I'm coming to you from my office in the Rayburn House office building across the street from the Capitol, and for the last few days we've been working on what is called the CR, or the continuing resolution to fund the government for the remainder of this fiscal year, which ends September 30th. The House Appropriations Committee has the base bill, and they agreed to cut $61 billion from actual spending and $100 billion off of President Obama's requests. We have seen articles, and we've had all kinds of people on television and in the newspapers saying that these cuts are draconian or drastic. All kinds of horror words have been used about these cuts. Actually, the truth is they're just a piddly drop in the bucket, because we are faced with an astounding national debt of over $14 trillion, going up very, very rapidly. They tell us that a few weeks ago they were telling us that the deficit for this fiscal year was going to be $1.5 trillion. Now they say it's going to be closer to $1.6 trillion. I think the reason that people aren't more upset about this is that it's almost humanly impossible to comprehend figures in the trillions, and it's just ridiculous that we have gotten in the kind of debt and deficit situation that we've gotten into in this country. But it's because people in public office just have been unable to say no to anyone. And so I think everyone now, even the most liberal big spenders in the Congress, are at least saying that we need to do something about the national debt. But of course, then they come up here and still vote against almost every amendment to cut. And then I'm disappointed in my own party, because most of the people, most of the Republicans anyway, who are the only real hope for cutting spending, are the more conservative members of Congress. But a great majority of them say that that things like defense and Homeland Security and a few things like that have to be left off the table. And in fact is the departments of Defense and Homeland Security and the Veterans Administration are receiving big increases in spending. I disagree with that, because I think that there is waste and inefficiency in every department and agency in the federal government. I think that there could be savings in every department. And in fact is people almost always laugh when I say at home that I'll tell them something that may shock them, but there's waste even in the Defense Department. And you have to, you can't have any sacred cows. You can't leave any department or agency off of this or out of this fight to find savings, or we'll never get to the point that we need to get to. I just heard a program where David Walker, the former head of the GAO, he's going all around the country trying to be a Paul Revere and warn this nation that we're headed very quickly in just a very few years, maybe even just 2 or 3 years, before we have a debt crisis of our own, such as we've seen earlier this year and last year in Ireland and several other countries. So we're facing very difficult times unless we bite the bullet and get to work and do what needs to be done. The Homeland Security Department, for instance, Ian Lustig, a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, had an article in the Hill newspaper, which is a very large circulation Capitol Hill newspaper, a few months ago. He wrote that our spending on domestic security measures far exceeds any rational relationship to the threat. And he said, really, the Homeland Security Department spending had just become a major profit center, a funding bonanza for all sorts of government officials and universities and so-called nonprofit corporations and politicians, and he said, but for the rest of the country, it had become a maelstrom of waste, and that's we can't accept that. We just have to do more and do better, and even if we cut the spending in the federal government far above or beyond what we're talking about in this bill, the federal government, almost every department and agency in the federal government would still be getting many billions more than they got just 3 years ago or 5 years ago, or especially if you compared federal spending to 10 years ago, you just wouldn't believe how much more these agencies are getting. And so there's all sorts of waste, and it's going to really destroy the future of our children and grandchildren if we don't get more people who are willing to do the tough things that need to be done to save this nation. Thank you.